Moving on to other stories. The NDC is renewing its calls to the Electoral Commission to drop its plans of laying a new constitutional instrument before Parliament. The CI, among others, makes the Ghana card a sole identity document to register as a voter. But in their fierce opposition, the NDC says there are so many eligible Ghanaians who do not have the Ghana card through no fault of theirs, and pushing through the CI will disenfranchise them. On Saturday, Executive Secretary of the NIA, Professor Ken Atefua, reviewed on Newsfile that up to 3.5 million cards belonging to the NIA and its partners have been seized by some banks due to government's indebtedness to the tune of $100 million. He, however, explains that government is working around the clock to settle the debt.
There are 541,529 cards that are not yet printed. That is, they are ready to print, but have not been printed. And Samson, that is largely because of financial difficulty. Since about August of last year, we have experienced financial constipation in the system, and it's created a situation where even though we have 3.5 million stock of cards in a bonded warehouse, we are unable to access the cards because of financial difficulties. The banks are owed. The private partner with whom NIA does business, Identity Management Systems Limited, which is the private partner in this, and we are operating the Ghana Card project under a public-private partnership arrangement.
That's right.
That private partner is owed a considerable amount of money. And the banks that have been bankrolling this are unable to further bear the cost and therefore had refused to, as it were, release the cards to us. Government yesterday made some payments that positions us to be hopeful that going into next week, cards will be released. Now, when cards are released, 541,529 cards can be printed in less than 2 weeks. We have the capacity. We have over 1,000 functional printers. We have people who are trained, who are professionals, who are sitting at home, who are doing nothing and are anxious to work. We call those people back to work. With 500 printers, we can print 50,000 cards a day.
Now, on the back of this development, the NDC says the EC must immediately halt the plan to lay the new CI, as many eligible voters will not be able to acquire the card in due time due to this challenge. James Agalga is ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee, which has oversight responsibility of the NIA.
First of all, the mere fact that the National Identification Authority is not well-resourced in order to be in the position to pay for its outstanding indebtedness. It's the reason why we believe that it is not time, the time is not right for the Electoral Commission to rely solely on the Ghana card as the identification document, sole identification document for purposes of registering for the upcoming elections. Look, as you rightly put it, 3.5 million of those cards are in the possession of those who printed them. And why are they keeping those cards? They are keeping them because the National Identification Authority hasn't got money to pay for them. It's as simple as that. And so when you have an EC which pretends that the National Identification Authority is not challenged and that it is only their documents that can be used for purposes of registering for the upcoming elections, then it becomes obvious to you that the Electoral Commission is hell-bent on disenfranchising millions of Ghanaians from participating in the democratic process. There is a linkage. The linkage stems from the fact that the Electoral Commission intends, through its proposed CI, to rely solely on the Ghana card as the mode of identification for purposes of registering those who are qualified to vote, for the, compiling a register for the upcoming elections. And so you find that these two institutions are supposed to work in tandem to ensure that one, all eligible Ghanaian voters have the Ghana card. Two, once they are in possession of the Ghana card, then they are qualified to register for purposes of voting in the 2024 election.
Now, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, who was in Parliament last week, Thursday, was expected to give some explanation for the delays in release of funds to the NIA, but that did not happen. Now, listen to the Speaker, Alban Bagbing, commenting on the situation.
The report talked about the Electoral Commission and the National Identification Authority. But looking at the challenges that they earlier articulated to a number of your committees, and particularly when the EC met me, they also articulated some issues. We thought that it was important for the Minister for Finance to be available, because the issues bordered on budgets, resources, logistics, and the creation of additional cost centers. So we wanted the Minister to be available at the Committee of the Whole to discuss with you how they were going to get the necessary resources, the money, to be able to make sure that this thing is implemented. Failing that, we were to prevail on the EC to add to the CI some clauses that could, in the meantime, take care of these challenges. And that is where the grantor clause was being asked to be inserted in case, at the end of the day, we couldn't get the EC, the NIA, to provide the ID cards to a larger, we're looking at about 90% or something, of qualified or eligible voters in the country. That was the purpose for the Committee of the Whole.
We can now go on to the phone line and speak to Deputy Minority Whip Ahmed Ibrahim on this. Grateful to you, sir, for joining us. You find the latest revelation on the availability of the NIA card as vindication? If that's it, how is that so?
Brother, let me say a very good evening to your cherished listeners. I didn't get you very well. What do you mean?
Okay, so I was trying to find out from you, the fact that the information we have on the NHIA card about, the fact that there's been some sort of mix-up somewhere, whether or not that is a vindication about the latest revelation about the availability of these cards, whether it vindicates your position as to why the EC should not lay the CI.
Well, let me say a very good evening to your cherished listeners. The 3,500 ID cards that the NIA is claiming that they are available to be distributed by, because they didn't have money. So if the finance minister release money for them, they will be able to distribute the 3.5 million cards. That one will not solve the problem of the availability of the NIA card to every Ghanaian who is eligible to vote, to have the right to vote. I'm saying this because the 3.5 million cards were reported to us in 14 July 2022.
Okay.
And beyond that, from 14 July 2022, if the Minister for Finance had made money available to the NIA card, it is the distribution of these 3.5 million cards that would have been done. And that would have brought the number of total registered NIA people in the country to be 16.5 million. we are expecting 19.9 million Ghanaians to register and vote in 2024 elections. Considering the number of Ghanaians who turn 18 years and above to be registered and added to the 17 million Ghanaians in 2020 elections. So all things being equal, if the population grows by 2.1% and we are 32 million Ghanaians, then you calculate 2.1 every year and add it to the number of those who turn to 18 years. We are expecting 19.9 million Ghanaians to 20 million Ghanaians to vote in 2024 elections. So if you are able to give NIA card to 16.5 million, it doesn't solve the problem. Where we are, what we are saying is that you don't create problems where there are no problems. We are expecting the NIA people and the Electoral Commission to work hand in hand. But we are not saying don't use Ghana card as one of the source documents. But what we are saying, don't use it as the only source, because it will disenfranchise some Ghanaians.
Okay.
That is where we are. And that is why we are calling on the Electoral Commission to come, so that we have a joint meeting with the two. Because the mischief the Electoral Commission wants to cure are unreasonable. One, you are saying you want to do continuous registration, and that is why you want to use the Ghana card as the only card. Continuous registration is one of the criteria, conditions that is met by Regulation 9 of the CR 91. It says that you can do continuous registration as and when you finish with your modalities with political parties. So if you want to do continuous registration, you don't have to make a new CI. Then secondly, the guarantor system that the NIA wants to take away from the Ghana card people, Electoral Commission wants to do away with. The NIA people did away with it in 2006 in their first law. And they realized that they could not make any headway. So in 2018, the NIA people came back to Parliament and told us that we should amend their law and include the guarantor system so that it will facilitate their registration of Ghanaians to give them the card. Other than that, they were facing a lot of challenges. So the NIA people, even though at first they took away the guarantor system, they came for the law to be amended to include it into their system, into their new law. And that is whereby people are guaranteeing for people to be able to be registered on the Ghana card.
So is it your position that if government is even able to immediately say that I'm going to settle this debt and get the card to the NIA to continue the registration exercise, you believe that the fact that the guarantor system is still something that has not been cleared still makes this a point that the EC cannot follow?
It is not a matter of coming to say, I'm assuring you I'm going to make the money available to them. What we are saying is make it available and let the card be available to Ghanaians. When the card is available to Ghanaians and Ghanaians say we have the card, now when we are assured that Ghanaians have the card, then we can go ahead to make a law. But you can't make the card just because of, you can't make the Ghana card the only card on the assurance of somebody. What if that person fails? Should we come back and change the law? So
but do we know when every Ghanaian eligible to vote in Ghana will have access to the Ghana card? Aren't you then proposing that this should be in perpetuity?
Yes. If you do mass registration, if you have the money, give it out for mass registration. Let every Ghanaian have it. Because the challenges that the Electoral Commission, the Ghana card people were saying were not only money. Money or funding was one. The other problem was internet availability. There is no internet connectivity in certain parts of the regions. In the Western North region, the Upper West region, the Northern Volta region, the Northern Brun region, there is no internet connectivity. So it is making the possibility of registration impossible. So they are entreating on the Minister of Communication to extend internet connectivity to those areas. Can we do that? Can we connect every part of Ghana to internet within these 4 months before we do the district level elections in September this year, 2023. So if you know you don't have the capacity to solve the problems of the NIA, one of which is the funding, another of which is the lack of adequate staff, another of which is the lack of internet connectivity, another of which is the government inability to release the third-party money. There are about 8 or 10 challenges. Okay. So solving one, which is only the funding, does not solve all the rest.
Okay, all right.
Do you remember when the
Ministry of Communications came out? I think that
you said that with that Ghana card, you can't register to connect your SIM card. Well, have they been successful in that?
Okay. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful. We'll be following this particular matter when this comes up.
Electoral exercise. What do you think that will happen in this country?
So that's the Minority Chief Whip there, Honorable Ahmed. Now.